Hello, hello, and happy Monday to you. It's so wonderful to have you with me. I hope that you had a beautiful weekend. If you're joining me on replay, welcome to the show. We're live today. I'm excited to welcome you to today's live level up conversation.
Welcome to Level Up with Winnie Sun.
Hello, friends. I'm Winnie Sun, your host, Forbes contributor, CNBC council member, and award-winning financial pro, here to keep you on top of relevant, trending business news. But most importantly, what makes this show special is that you're joining me live and you're part of today's discussion. We're going to be sharing audience feedback throughout the show. It is so great to have you with us. And of course, welcome back. Today is so special. I can't wait to introduce you to a very special friend. As a reminder, this month, though, he and I are going to be celebrating with you. It is Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, which is very, very special. But I have a powerhouse guest with us today. He's popular, of course, in K-pop circles, but also more importantly, he's an established entrepreneur and really business powerhouse, CMO, marketing mind of AirDeck, board member of $4. Wants there's so much that we have to talk about. And actually, I think you're going to find his story not only inspiring, but also something really, really hopeful for you and your own business journey. So we're in for a treat. But before we jump to him, and I know you want to meet him, here's how the market closed. We got to get through the tough part before we get the fun part, right? So first off, I want to say hello to, so many guests. Thank you so much for so many friends joining me today. It is great to have you back with me on this beautiful Monday. But let's talk about how the market closed. I wish I had better news for you, but unfortunately, there's going to be days like this. Isn't a song that says there's days like this? Unfortunately, there are days like this. The Dow closed down 653 points. NASDAQ also down 521 points. And the S&P 500 also down 132 points. So a triple down day. Fortunately, we were hoping for a better week this week, and it doesn't look like we're getting it. Unfortunately, the inflation outlook for consumers continues to be really, really difficult. In fact, the Fed survey just released today. My friends at CNBC shared an article talking about, unfortunately, inflation continued to be a grave concern for consumers nationwide. In addition, we continue to see weakness now on international markets. In fact, Japan's market definitely down more than 2%. China's April trade data also came in, unfortunately, very, very challenging as well. So we continue to see the Asian stock market continue to tumble and have challenges, just like we have here in the United States. Now, part of the reason is also because you may have seen some of the news this weekend, but namely today, unfortunately, COVID continues to be creating considerable havoc here in the United States. In fact, the White House came out today asking, of course, Congress for more money in the amount of 22.5 billion, big ones. They're looking for additional funding. In fact, the nation is saying, we need to do something about this. We need to continue to have money for testing and vaccines and prevention and all these things. And if we don't have enough money, they're saying that the next generation of vaccines, they might not be offered to all of us. In fact, they might only have enough budget for those select few, which, is always a little concerning. But that's the news that's coming out. And they're saying that the Biden administration is adding that. Unfortunately, it looks like, based on numbers and studies that are showing that we could have over 100 million Americans contracting COVID-19, maybe the new subvariant, whatever it may be at that time, again this fall. So unfortunately, not such great news coming out of business news today, but I thought I would keep you on top of this because with this knowledge helps us better navigate our future business decisions for each of us, right? Now, today is a very special treat. As I hinted earlier in the show, let's have some fun, right? Let's welcome my friend, Jack Phan. He's an entrepreneur, CMO of AirDeck, board member of $4 once, and he's just like a really, really cool dude. Jack, welcome to the show. How are you?
Doing great, Winnie. Thank you so much for having me again.
Well, it is such a treat to have you with us. Let me just tell you, I've had a chance to now know you for a little bit now. I know we first started as Adobe insiders, and but you're actually really well known in the social media space. But not only that is as a I would definitely say a serial entrepreneur, right? 20 plus years building, scaling startups. You're currently chief marketing officer of AirDeck, which is a leader in on-demand document narration and tracking. And I want to talk about so many other things that you've done in the past as well. And I know you continue to help many media powerhouses. But can we also say, Jack, you have a lot of Twitter followers? I think that's something that is really impressive because for those of you who know, in the past, of course, it probably was a lot easier to gain traction on Twitter, but Twitter and a lot of social media platforms have done a great job of cleaning house consistently and periodically to make sure that the followers that you have are real and authentic and truly engaged. And I gotta say, Jack, your Twitter follower over 1 million followers, million plus, are highly engaged, and they almost, I feel like, Jack, you could actually take pictures of pebbles and it would do well.
I wish I had that kind of power. But yeah, no, I think over the years I've just found out that if you build a good relationship with your audience, right, have conversations, let them know that you're listening and reply, it builds a great connection, and that communication allows you to a connection allows you to have better communication, and so when I'm sharing things, it's really authentic, and it's fun, and it's still inspiring for those who are looking for motivation and whatnot. But also, I like to have fun out there, and I'm myself. So who knew, right? Just a regular business guy who decided he wanted to talk to a bunch of people, share fun things, and can build an audience the way I have. So it's been really great.
Well, congratulations, Jack. It's an impressive audience, and we're definitely going to talk more about that. I want to say, I feel like, when we talk about Twitter, we know about Jack, but let me just tell you, I'm thinking that Jack follows our Jack today. So, really fun. Like, when we're talking about Jack Dorsey, of course, for fun. But let's talk about this, Jack. I really want to talk to you about your backstory. I know you and I have known each other for a bit. I've always had an interest. I know you told me a little bit about that. I think it's fascinating. If you don't mind, if you could share with our audience today how it all started, where was the back, where did you learn, and where did you grow up, and kind of give us the backstory there.
Yeah, so I mean, I love telling the story. I go back, from when my father was in Vietnam, and the end of the war there. So my family left on a refugee boat from Vietnam, and we were actually attacked by pirates and robbed twice. And then at one point, I became an abductee of the pirates, and luckily reunited with my family, and made it to the U.S. When I was on my first birthday, actually. So that was really an important moment for me to be able to, and our family, to come to this new land, and without really knowing any English or anything like that, and creating a new space for our lives. And my father passed away earlier last year. He made it to 90 years old. He built a great family for all of us, an opportunity for all of us to grow within the U.S. and make a name for ourselves in the things that we do, and how we help out people. So with that, he was always inspiring me to create things, to look at things in a different lens, as well as just be entrepreneurial, right? Don't put your reliance on other people, the government, or anything like that. There's handouts, food stamps, all those fun things, but he always encouraged me, you got to make what you can do. You go out and encourage us. He encouraged us to be the best versions of ourselves, and showed us the path to do that. So I became an entrepreneur, really early on. I think I spent a year in China studying abroad in college, came back to the US right when the dot-com in 1996 was beginning, right? 95, 96. You had the Yahoos of the world and stuff like that beginning to pop up. But one of the things I've always done growing up was I look at things from a different lens, and I look at opportunities of finding new ways to do old things, right? And one of my first startups was that, basically taking yellow page books and turning them into new ways of getting leads to contractors. So we raised $26 million on that first business, grew it, dot-com bubble bursted. We ended up selling that company to what today is known as Home Advisor and Angie's List. So that was a great exit and start
Wow.
to my career, which gave me a taste of what it felt like to build something really meaningful. And from there, I went on to build a second business, sold that business in a very successful way as well. Bootstrapped that business with my co-founder Eric Dudley, and from there, I went on and invested in a bunch of different companies. But then I joined Digital Trends, another company in the tech media space, and started to look at expanding opportunities as far as how companies grow, affiliate marketing, digital marketing, content marketing, a lot of marketing focus. Even though I was really more of a technology guy, I was able to really transform what I'd learned in the past and took it to more of a marketing focus. And social media that was really blooming at that time allowed me to really take advantage of those opportunities. So from there, I've gone on to build my own agency to help other publishers in the news space, and then a couple businesses here and there. I'm currently the chief marketing officer at AirDeck, and kind of helping us grow our brand and our audience and our inbound leads here as well. Really introducing the entrepreneurs there at AirDeck on how to scale this business as well. So.
That's impressive, Jack. Can we talk about that? I think you made a really good point. You said, well, I've been in technology, but I've also realized and recognized my role in marketing as well. Sometimes I think a lot of times when we try to find our way, right, our role, like what work we should be doing, we sort of don't feel like technology and marketing maybe go hand in hand. What would you say to that when you say, well, I feel like I'm much more of a technical person, but I feel like I need to learn social media as well?
Yeah, absolutely. When I started my career, I started as a telemarketing, to be honestly. So I started telemarketing on the first company, calling homeowners, asking if they needed to have, remodel their house or new windows replaced or whatnot. But I'm always learning, right? I'm always looking at how people respond to me and looking at ways to improve that. Over time, at that time, I looked at it and said, I can improve this with technology. I built a database, I built a website, I built technology that helped made that process a little bit easier, a little bit smoother, and more you know, less restrictions, and allowing that to grow. But you're always learning. I'm always learning, and I'm always trying to understand, how are people reacting to what I have to say? How are people responding to doing things automated versus manual, right? And are people at understanding and accepting new technologies or new processes um, in regards to how they're used to things, right? And does it make it easier? Does it make it faster? Does it make it better? And so all these things, coming from with the technology background, looking at that from a marketing perspective, once you're able to identify that with the, businesses or consumers, what are they looking for? What are the pain points that we're solving for them? And how do, we talk about that and build relationships with them so they build that trust. That's when you start picking up new skills. And so for me, I'm always learning new skills. I went, built technology, now in marketing, but I'm an entrepreneur. I fit wherever it's needed, and I'll find ways to make it work. I learn very, very fast, and that's how I'm able to continue to progress in my career.
I love what you said, Jack. You said, I find a need and I learn, and I learn really fast and I move. And I love how you say you can just pivot, right? You didn't have to stick into one sort of shell. Like you didn't have to have one definition. Like I think of Jack, when I think of you, Jack, I think of someone who is really talented in so many different avenues and different spaces. And that's what I think is very inspiring when you learn about your story, Jack. And especially, I mean, I'm sure many of you caught that when Jack talked about he was actually, captured by pirates. I don't think many of us can talk about that, Jack. Have you actually met anyone who can say the same, that they've been captured by pirates?
No, honestly, I cannot, and it is one of those things where I told this story way back when to an old colleague of mine. He was in marketing. He's like, "That's a story, Jack. You got to take that and share with people that story." But it is a really incredible journey to think about how my life started. Right, I was born on an island just south of Vietnam that was basically there's like nobody there. It's now a resort place down in Vietnam, but there was nobody there at that time. And when we left that, the Vietnam, I was born in no hospital. My dad actually buried my placenta and my umbilical cord
Wow.
in the sand there, which I need to go back and I want to, step on the land where I was born, right?
Hmm.
And to go from there to being robbed and kidnapped and making it all the way to where I am today and having the career I have, it's really an incredible story that I hope one day I'll be able to share in a memoir or some type of book that I'm working on right now as well. So and share that with the world.
Yeah, that's incredible, Jack. I'm curious. So your parents went through this. Like, how do you think? I'm just guessing right now. Like, how did this impact them? Did they tell you, going through this? Did it made? I'm guessing it actually made them much more resilient.
Absolutely. No, my father, and I'm hearing more and more stories every day about my father from my brothers who, we reunited after my father passed away. And we've just been telling stories. And
Mhm.
I lived with my father when we came to the US, and my brothers and sisters lived with him mostly when they were in Vietnam. So it's a big difference, right? And so my siblings are now over in the US, but we're connecting and we're sharing stories of when my brother was 17 years old versus when I was 17 years old with my dad. Two completely different dads, but he's changed so much over the years, and always figured out what he needed to do. He was in the army, in Vietnam. Actually led several of um, uh, the what do you call that, the armies down in the during the war in Vietnam. And so he was really high ranking official in those places. To go
Mhm.
from that to being a carpenter and hiding in the jungles in the south of Vietnam to coming to America, and then he became an entrepreneur. And like most Vietnamese refugees, you had to find different ways to build a career. Interestingly enough, my father created a career out of upholstery, right, which is
Wow.
recovering sofas and chairs. And he, to pay $5,000, got learned how to do that. Went out and opened up his own upholstery shop in a basement of our house, right? And so
Mhm.
that, to me, he always found ways, like, I could take these handouts from the state or from the government, food stamps, but there were restrictions on what I could do, how much I could earn, all these things. And he's like, I didn't want that. He told me as I grew up, it's like, don't rely on other people to to pay your bill and for you to take care of your family. Make that happen on your own. And so that was always planted in me, like, yes, I can go work for someone else, or I can build something that is helping myself take care of my family, but also creates a lot of opportunities for others, right? And
Mhm.
because I had that mentality, it really helped me to see how to do that and also continue to do that, and see my father resiliency over time continue to do that. Really is inspiring. And what they had to go through to get to where they were and finally raise me the way I am right now, I think it's just incredible, and a testament to really their abilities to start over from scratch, bare hands with nothing in their pockets, coming here in 1978.
Wow. Well, I'm sure your dad is so proud of you and all that you accomplished, because I find your story very, very inspiring. And now it makes a lot of sense, Jack. I mean, what you went through and your parents' experience, but I love that. I love that lesson of like that being resilient and like, depending on yourself. And actually, let's talk about that, because you have built quite some companies, and you've had successes that you shared it with us earlier. But talk about AirDeck and why AirDeck is important to you now.
Yeah, so AirDeck, I met the founder of AirDeck, Jason Weaver, about 10, 12 years ago after I sold my second company. And so he and I were talking. He was building a company at that time, and he was having some difficulties in different areas. And just as a peer and mentor, I kind of talked to him about what he was doing and getting over that hump. And then once you get over that hump, it really, everything takes off. And so he took that to heart. He went and grew his business, grew it to a really great, large business in Madison. And then he ended up selling that company and had a great exit from there. So we've stayed in touch since then. And he's always throwing, as entrepreneurs, we never stop. We always like, oh, what if we created this? What if we created that? And so he and I, we've always talked over the years. And right before the pandemic, he was talking about a project that he was working on, and he wanted to bring narration to plain PDFs and documents. And so I followed him along while he kind of played around with the idea. He shared it with social media, with friends, and then the pandemic hit. And he was like, "This is the time. This is when I need to make this available." So he went out and looked at his product and said, the pandemic was forcing everyone in March of 2020 to go remote, right? And so
Mhm.
teachers had to take their lectures offline or asynchronous type of communication. They couldn't bring students into classrooms anymore. And so Jason said, you know what? I'm going to make this product available to all the schools for free. And so he went out and gave all these schools, 800 schools, I believe, at that time, access to AirDeck, which was, take your lecture, take your lesson plan, put it into AirDeck, narrate it as if you're giving a plan to or a lesson to your class, and send it out, and your students can watch the lesson. They can interact with it. They can get the narration from you, but then you're also tracking where they engage, how often they engage on the content, and how they are able to digest the information, where they're spending time, and so on and so forth. So that was kind of the birth of AirDeck. And since then, we've taken that product and we've identified this more of a B2B product, right? And so what we're seeing is companies who need to onboard new customers, hundreds of new customers, or a bunch of new employees, and they're taking these attachments or these training documents, or they're taking these materials to help people onboard, and rather than sending an attachment into an email, they would send AirDecks, right? And so they could take that attachment, put it into our platform, narrate it, and then send a unique link so that these the people receiving it on the other end are able to see an actual AirDeck of the presentation of a document without having to spend time on a meeting. So essentially what we're doing is we were taking away meetings that weren't necessary anymore. How many times have you had to send out a document and you're like, okay, here's the attachment, here's everything you need to do. You know what? Let's schedule a call so I can go over this with you,
Right.
because you're missing context, right? And so AirDeck really allows you to take any type of document or presentation, narrate it, add video overlay. And so when I heard about that, and Jason was talking about what was going on with AirDeck, I'm like, God, this is a game-changing technology, what you're doing, right? Because how many people send attachments, and how many people are wish they could not spend time in a meeting going over that attachment, and they can just send a narrated pitch deck or a narrated demo or training document. And lo and behold, AirDeck has just been growing significantly, and I've gone on board to really help shape the marketing of AirDeck, as well as to help people become aware of what AirDeck is and how it really can change the way that we're communicating.
Yeah, I think it's so smart, Jack. I mean, it helps give context. And so many times we say things are lost in translation, right? You might get an email or a text and it doesn't have that warm, fuzzy, or the tone that you want. This sort of resolves that. And also, what I like about it is it helps definitely us to be more productive, and it stretches our time schedule every day, right? So that we don't have to, be jumping Zoom to Zoom. We can actually send this document and it can do a lot of the initial heavy lifting. But we got to talk about you have so many organizations, but this one I love as well. So great job on AirDeck. But let's, sort of segue over to, the Charity Care Act. I would love for you to talk about that, because I know you're involved with $4, which, let's be honest, it's helping millions of families. And we need to talk about this and get the word out on this.
Absolutely. I met the $4 folks several years ago, and it was a guy named Jared Walker, and he was helping out some family members with medical debt. And he found out that you can go to the hospitals, and if you dig into the websites, and you can find out if they have a Charity Care Act, and people qualify if they're a nonprofit hospital, and based on their income levels, well, you can request to have your debt completely paid off. So he did that successfully, and then he's like, oh, this medical debt that my family had, I just actually helped them eliminate that completely. He's like, how many other families out there are having these issues? And so he went on to do a little more research, and he met an attorney friend who helped look at all the legal side of it, and realized that there's a much bigger problem that is out there. And medical debt, obviously, as you know, is one of the leading causes of bankruptcies and debt in the US. I think there's some ridiculous number as far as how much medical debt there is in the US. And amazingly, most of that debt can and should be cleared completely, right? And that's because of the Charity Care Act. And the Charity Care Act basically says that if you're a nonprofit hospital, you're required to write off or forgive debt if people fall within the income requirements. And it's by state and national, and by areas as well. But every hospital, we've now gone through and cataloged every single hospital in the US that is a nonprofit hospital, and we put it into our website, into our application. And you can go there to $4 right now, and you can go in there and get help with your medical debt. If you put in your information, you search for the hospital that you're there, and you can put in your information. They can quickly identify, based on your income level and whatnot, how if that hospital should be forgiving your debt. And you'd be surprised, because you would think that, okay, you have, a lot of debt, but the family makes too much money, right?
Hmm.
The debt requirements is actually very interesting. You can still make money, but if you have like a family of 3 kids or 4 kids and a husband and wife, you'd be surprised what that threshold is. I mean, it's
Hmm.
you can make over 100K and still have that debt, relieved. So there's a lot of things. What Dollar Four has been doing has really to help patients, because there's so much of that information that if every single person tried to do this on their own, you could do it. But what we try to do is, as a nonprofit, have volunteers and resources that can help you navigate that, so that the hospitals will reach out to hospitals, write letters, follow the process, follow up, and then at the end of the day, people get the letter say your debt has been forgiven. And there's great stories we have on the website too, where there's a family who, a father got into a car accident, and he, he was the single income person and stopped working. 100 and some odd $1,000, and like 135,000, I believe, was the total. And they thought that was it. They were done. They had to either file bankruptcy or figure something out. He was unable to work. She had to find a new job. And then they found Dollar Four. And what happened was, in his road to recovery, we helped him look at that debt, analyze what the family situation was, get the information to the hospital, made a case for why this debt should be relieved. And a couple weeks later, the hospital wrote back and said the $135,000 in debt completely wiped away. So.
Jack, that's just incredible. And I think, so many families, medical debt is such a big one, because let's be honest, most of us don't expect to get sick. We don't expect to be hurt. And we certainly feel like, well, that's why we have medical insurance, only to find out oftentimes, number one, you may find out you're underinsured, or maybe you don't have insurance. And the number is just so big, you don't even know where to start, because always that sort of surprise of how expensive proper hospital care can be. So when I actually learned from you, Jack, about the Charity Care Act, I thought this was incredible. So this is really good. I think especially timely that we just talked about earlier. We're still going through COVID, right? A lot of people still getting sick. This is something that is important. You may not need this right now, but it's good information to have. And so Jack, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And this is why you're everyone who's watching, listening today, this is why you're really going to want to, follow Jack on Twitter and everything else, because not only, as you can tell, he's now involved in helping businesses communicate more efficiently, more effectively, right, through AirDeck. And then he now has taught us also about medical debt. And for some of our loved ones and friends and family, they might actually really benefit from the knowledge that he shared on the show today. But let's talk about something fun, Jack. Let's talk about your just incredible K-pop journey. Now, I teased it at the beginning of the show. Some of you are probably like, what are you talking about? I got to take a moment and just say it is awesome to have you here, Joshua. Cross-X Fighter he actually really enjoyed the bit about being caught by pirates. But I just want you to know, Jack, he really enjoyed that. Vicky is joining us from the UK. It's so great to see you as well. I see a lot of you joining us. Thank you so much. Definitely let us know where you're joining us from and any questions that you might have for Jack. But Jack, we got to talk about this because I know you as a super entrepreneur, very, very smart business person from the technology, marketing, everything. But then K-pop, Jack, sometimes you got to share with us, how did this happen? Are you like, you dance K-pop and sing the K-pop in the evenings and we don't know about this? Where did this come from?
That's a it's really an incredible story, incredible journey for me that I love telling the story, just because of how far it's taken me and the people I've met and the relationships I have now with the K-pop community as a whole. But I've always been into music. I love music from all genres, right? And my roommate in college was Korean, and so I listened to the early days, first gen K-pop, right? And a lot of that days was early, hip hop and music. But Korea, I'm not sure the whole story of K-pop, but back in the day, they went and said, our export from Korea is going to be entertainment and music and food, right? Which is fascinating to think about where the world is today with K-dramas, K-pop music, and dining and Korean barbecue, right? So but really, so my first taste of kind of Korean pop culture has always been there. But I've always been I'm an international person. I studied abroad in China. I spent time in Japan and my roommates and I hung out with all different cultures. But was not prepared for what happened to me in September of 2019, and really in 2019, I was just a tech entrepreneur, always looking at the latest things, and Apple was releasing, I think, the iPhone 11 at that time,
Wow.
and so I'm watching the Apple event. I log in like I do every year during the Apple events for the latest iPhones, and I'm on Twitter and I'm looking at what's trending, and I'm like, okay, we're 15 minutes into this. I know that in Asia, different things trend, but when the Apple event happens,
Hmm.
that's the number one trending thing. But for this day, I was looking at it, I'm like, something is still trending ahead of the Apple event. And it was just fascinating. I'm like, what is this? And so I looked at it, and it's just, 4 letters, Momo, Momo. And I'm like,
Hmm.
what is Momo? So that is literally the tweet I tweeted out, which is Apple event's happening now. And Momo is trending ahead of what is Momo, was just a simple question.
Uh-huh.
And those few words of a question just launched into this fan base of Twice, which is a K-pop group, and they started tweeting at me and telling me, "Oh, the Momo is a member of the K-pop girl group Twice, and they have a new teaser that just dropped today, and everyone is going crazy because we're seeing Momo's forehead for the first time in 4 years." And trying to take that in, all of a sudden was like, wait, what is all this? But it was the way that they responded to me was just fascinating, and my curiosity was really piqued. And so the Apple event's still going on, but in the meantime, I'm getting tweets from people. You need to watch this video. You need to check out Twice. Learn about the girls here. Learn about this. Learn about that. And you know what? I said, I will. So I started to learn about them, and I started to react and engage. And next thing you know, I'm like, God, this fan base is incredible. This fan base for
Hmm.
Twice, they're known as Once. The group's Twice. The fan base is known as Once. Was just incredible and very positive, very wanting me, this tech entrepreneur, to know about Twice, right? Lo and
Hmm.
behold, so that was just day one, right? I'm like, okay, this is pretty interesting, okay, getting a lot of likes and retweets and tweets at me and messages. I'm like, okay, great, that's fine. Next day was when everything kind of blew up for me the second time, right? So the next day, I had no idea how much impact that my tweet would have had on this group. And so there's news articles that was coming out in South Korea and all over the world that basically had said iPhone 11 launches during the Apple event, trends Twice trends ahead of it, startles CEO, right? And there's a picture of Momo and a picture of me side by side. And so a couple things happened. One, internationally, I'm surprised how many people didn't know this, but there were a lot of people who did not know who the CEO of Apple was. And so that headline of iPhone 11 launches, Twice Momo trends ahead of it, startled CEO. They were thinking the CEO of Apple, which they thought I was the CEO of Apple, and was startled by that. So it started a whole flood of, and I had to explain, no, I'm not the CEO. I'm an entrepreneur. I have a company that I'm a CEO of, and whatnot. And so I kind of played along with it, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, her music is their music is awesome. I picked up and I started tweeting about some of the things that were going on, and it was just crazy for about a week. News outlets all over the world was picking this up of, some tech entrepreneur CEO is now talking, with 1 million followers, because I had 1 million followers already at that time, was
Hmm.
talking about, Twice, this K-pop girl group, right?
Uh-huh.
But it was amazing. I really enjoyed that because it allowed me to kind of open up, my eyes to see these kids, and not just all kids. There's a lot of adults that follow K-pop, but it was the positiveness that came from them because of their desire to want me to understand about Twice, and then their favorite group, and the songs that inspire them, and people who would cry because they got to do certain things, or someone
Wow.
paid spoke to them about Twice, or Twice was able to do a video call with them. I was fascinated.
Hmm.
Like, I think everyone should become a K-pop fan at some point in their lives just to experience this. And slowly I started to experience this, which was fascinating. I got invited to a concert in Korea during their a month after that it happened, and experienced Twice for the first time. And I didn't realize how big news it was until I got to Korea. Even then I was like, okay, it's big on internet, but people wouldn't really know who I was. But I got to Korea,
Hmm.
people recognized me right away. They're like, "You're a CEO guy. Can I take a picture? You're the CEO guy." And I'm like, wow. lo and behold, because Twice is the biggest girl group in K-pop, right? And so had no idea. I mean, they're like the girl version of BTS, right? So it's just been phenomenal, an incredible ride. I even did a talk for Adobe's emerging tech talk, and I talked about how building a fan base for your company is also as important. And if here's some tips from K-pop that you can learn to grow your audience, and it's just an really incredible journey. And I apologize for really talking too much around this, but it's really something that I've really enjoyed.
No, Jack, you tease it. So I'm going to ask you, give me one of those tips that you shared at your Adobe talk. What can we learn? What should businesses be thinking of?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so, when you're with K-pop, what I found out real quickly is when you have a fan base, or you build fans for your music or whatever it is, fans will do anything for you, right? I mean, quite literally, there are some who will literally do anything, right? But you think about sports teams or movie franchises or franchises or whatnot, but K-pop takes it to a whole new level. People will spend money they don't have. They will, market you in ways that is really authentic and through their eyes and through their lenses. And really, so one of the things I talked about is in K-pop, they're constantly feeding you content, right? And so the companies will constantly feed their fan base content. What the fans do is they take that content and repurpose it, and they'll push it back out, and they'll do things. So the more you give to your customers, your clients, or turn them into fans of your business, right? How you treat them, how they feel when you're how they feel when they're your customer, and how you make them feel, they will do that in return to you. They'll give you good reviews. They'll talk about your company authentically. You don't have, it's the fan base will do some amazing things. These concerts, these votings that happen, the fact that BTS, gets voted into a lot of these fans and then eventually Grammys, right, came from the fans. All these things have to happen because of the fans, right? The groups themselves can only go so far, but as much as the group can go, and with their music and whatnot, it's how strong is that fan base. And if the fan base is that strong, they can push things above and beyond, and where people can't imagine. So it's with businesses, it's the same way. I believe that if you build a solid fan base, Apple fans or Samsung fans or whatever those type of fans are, they will be do things for those brands, and they will talk about, they will defend you, they will do all these amazing things. And so that's part of my what I talked about is make sure you build a fan base, feed them as much information as possible, and treat them in a way that they will continue to praise praise the work that you do, and allow you to get free marketing basically out of that.
I love it. Amazing. Thank you so much, Jack, for sharing that. Such an incredible journey and such a fun story. And, I am definitely seeing so many positive comments. I'm sure you're seeing them, Jack, as well. So thank you, everyone, for being here. I think it's time for Joshua's favorite segment, and that is Speed Round.
Speed Round.
Jack, so grateful that you are here with us. I've learned so much, and honestly, I could go on for hours with you because I've enjoyed this conversation so much. But let's do this. We're going to give you 2 questions in 2 minutes. And so, Jack, I want to start with this question. Obviously, we learned of so much of your successes in this brief time that we've had together. And a lot of people, I think, are in awe. I think you have a lot of new fans today. But one thing I'd like to ask is this, I think so often we learn from our disappointments. And I think we would agree that all of us have had them, especially in our business journey. When you think about that, what do you think has been your biggest or greatest professional disappointment? And what, Jack, did you learn from that experience?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I talk a lot about my first startup and how we went out and raised $26 million and grew that company and sold it to, another company called Service Magic at the time that eventually became Home Advisor. I think the one area that people don't realize is part of that story is the disappointment I had there is we raised money and brought in, people that we thought knew more than us, or not knew more than us. We brought in people that would tell us what to do, thinking that they had all the right answers. I was a young entrepreneur at that time. I was in my early 20s. So one of my things is, okay, well, we raised the money and they're telling us this is what we need to do. That we'll do what they do. So we brought in, millions of dollars of technology, brought in different things to help grow the company. And, raising that capital and diluting our equity to the point where, by the time it was sold, there was not much left for us. Right.
Mhm.
And I think it was the wrong reason to raise money at that time, just simply because money was being thrown around so much. I mean, you could throw an idea on a paper napkin. I'm sure, back in the 90s, people had ideas on napkins all the time that VCs would just throw money at. And then once the VCs throw money at you, you lose your equity, but then also you think you're on top of the world. But, you know, it was very, very challenging. And so for me, it's like, trust your instincts, trust, what you're able to do. Surround yourself with people who know more and can do more, can add to that. But don't don't believe that just because someone says here's a bunch of money that this is the right way to do it, that's always the right way. You have to trust your intuition as an entrepreneur, and you have to raise money for the right reasons. You have to make sure you have raising money with the right partners that can help you grow your business, as opposed to someone who's looking to get rich off of your business, right? So that was one of the challenges I had early on in my career, and really I didn't make that mistake again. In the second business, we kind of just bootstrapped that and didn't raise any money. We had offers, but we said, no, we're going to grow this ourselves, make the money over time, and really grow it ourselves. And I got a really nice exit from that company, which would have had to be in the hundreds of millions of dollars to get the exit I did if I had brought on investors. So first business, that was kind of the disappointment that I had to deal with early on with raising capital, learning really early on in my life that it's not always easy just to take a bunch of money from people. It becomes their business. It becomes what they want to do, and sometimes that's not always the best solution.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are listening and hearing this. You gotta trust your intuition. And right, no such thing as a free lunch, right, Jack? So I love that. All right, this is the second question. Now, I do believe, and I know you believe as well, that everybody has their own yes factor, right? There's something special about you. What, Jack, do you say that yours is?
That's a great question. A superpower. So, for me, I think, I have a unique ability to just be able to look at things and always think that there's something possible, right? I remember early one of there's nothing is impossible. It's one of those things where I think Nelson Mandela had a quote: "It's always feels impossible until it's done." Right. And then a lot of us feel that way, right? You're like, oh, this is impossible. And then when you finally get it done, you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad after all, right? And so I've always taken that perspective when people said, how are you going to do something or come up with, replace Yellow Pages. Yellow Pages has been around forever. All the contractors are putting money into those advertisements, yard signs on the road. The internet, how's that going to happen, right? And so
Mhm.
these are things that for me, I was like, well, we'll figure out a way, right? It's almost like the Elon Musk kind of way of thinking too, which I love the way he thinks, right? He's like, I'm going to build rockets. I'm going to take everybody, we'll make humans interplanetary and go to Mars one day, right?
Mhm.
It's that type of vision that says, it may seem impossible, right? It may be challenging, but a lot of people are like, well, it's going to be hard, right? Or that's never going to happen. It's impossible. I always think of it as, okay, let's find new ways of doing old things. Let's find ways to achieve things and make the impossible possible, right? And so it's to me, it's not really a superpower necessarily of being able to do that, but I maybe call me a person with rosy glasses all the time or something. But I do look at things and I'm like, there's got to be a solution. Always has to be a solution to that problem, right? And maybe a solution you don't like, or maybe a solution that really is an opportunity. But I can never look at a problem and say there's no solution to it, because I always think that there's a way to solve pretty much anything if you put your mind to it.
There's always a way to solve anything if you put your mind to it. Powerful, Jack. I love it. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that I should have asked you that I didn't that you want to share with us today?
I mean, really, right now, my career has just been really building on the different new businesses and startup ideas. Engaging with fans. I think there's a so Twice had their concert back in February here in the U.S. tour. They're coming back this Saturday, so I'll be heading there down to LA again to head to that venue and an encore concert, which would be amazing at the Bank of America Center down there. But yeah, no, I mean, really, I encourage people to reach out to me. I've talked to people, I've mentored others. I have a story I want to tell real quickly. During this whole K-pop frenzy that was happening, I met a lot of young people on through Twitter and people who DM me, and it's incredible the mental health of some of these kids, right? I can make someone's day. It's really incredible that someone messages me not expecting me to respond, and I respond. But there's been stories of people who would message me having a bad day, kids 14 15 years old, not knowing how to tell their parents this and not knowing how to parents that. There were some that have had suicidal thoughts even, and they wanted someone just to talk to, right? Do what you can. Like, every little piece that you can do can save people's lives. I had a friend, a person now who's now a friend of mine on Twitter. She went through a tough time, and little things that you can do to make someone else's day can go a long ways. And I really encourage that to everyone, right? If you're going to do anything in your life, make sure that you can do just a little thing every day that really helps other people. And there's been incredible things that I look at. I've had challenges in my life. I've had a lot of different things, and I've always found things to do, right? $4 came out of that because I was like, okay, I'm having some obstacles, some bottlenecks right now. Let's focus on helping other people, doing other things for a while until I kind of get things sorted out. And it's really helped me, and my career as a whole has been built around, doing what I can do, but also helping out others as you can. So.
Amazing, Jack. So many people, I'm sure, can relate to that. And we are so grateful that you always continue to ask, why not me? What else can I do? And how can I make someone's day just a little bit better? And I'm sure even those, like what you describe as kids, they see you as, someone of leadership. And that's why it's such a privilege for us to share your story during this month. So Jack, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate your forthcoming and your generosity and just being like, just your curiosity. It's so fascinating. And like, Jack, keep on dreaming, because we're going to keep on following you close along as well. Thank you so much, my friends, for watching and supporting our program today. And please take a moment to share this show, just like Vicky does, I know, and Joshua do. Thank you so much for our friends for being here. And as a reminder, you're going to be able to find full episodes of Level Up with Winnie Sun on NASDAQ, KBCW, Amazon Fire, Roku, I think many other places as well this week. And we're excited to, of course, share that Yes Factor, our brand new podcast, is now available on most podcast platforms. It's a LinkedIn Presents podcast. We're very excited and very proud to share it with all of you. Be well, and I can't wait to see you again tomorrow. All right, take care. See you soon. Bye-bye now.